The next exercise we're going to do is bent knee fallouts. With this exercise, it's one of the foundation exercises in Pilates, and it starts to include obliques, bringing in rotatory stability of the pelvis. So it's really good for athletes doing things like running or swimming, or anybody who has a little bit of instability problem with their back and gets low back pain. This is a really good core exercise to do. We're going to start in rest position for it. Initially, I'll start doing it just as a mat work exercise with no equipment, but then I'm going to introduce the soft ball, as this is a really good stability challenge for this exercise. So you'll lie down onto your back, you'll go into your normal rest position. So we've got ankles, knees and hips in alignment, neutral pelvic tilt, so you've got a little curve in your lower back, shoulders are going to be nice and heavy into the mat, and so is the neck. I'm going to get you just to bring your hands onto your hips for this one. We'll start by getting your core connection, so take a nice deep breath in wide into the ribs, and then when you're ready, breathing out, dropping down and together with the ribs, getting the rib cage closure, drawing the belly button to the spine and lifting the pelvic floor muscles. From here, you're going to take a breath out and you're going to drop one knee out to the side. And then inhale, bring the leg back into your start position. So we're alternating with the legs dropping out from one side to the other. It wants to be slow and controlled as you do this movement. And the reason why I've got you to bring your hands onto your hips is so that you can feel what is happening with the opposite hip. So as I go out with the right leg here, I'm checking my left hip doesn't push up into my hands, and also that the right hip doesn't drop down. So we're keeping the pelvis really steady. So if you feel the two bony points on the front of your hips, imagine putting a builder's spirit level over the top of them and checking that the bubble stays centered as you go through this exercise. You're also then checking that you're not counterbalancing with the stationary knee. So the one that's staying still doesn't start to also wander out a little bit. We keep it nice and still. So pretend you've got a full glass of water resting on top of the knee, keeping the water in the glass, making sure we don't spill it out from one side to the other. So you're just taking your time with your breath as you do this one, and this is where you should start to feel, as you're working to keep the pelvis level, your obliques have to work. So I always think of you thinking of your obliques as though you've got little paperweights on the hips, and as we drop out now with the left knee, my right paperweight has to keep this hip down, so you should feel those oblique muscles just tightening a little bit here on the right side. Now we're going to just make it a little bit more challenging, and we're going to add in the soft ball. So just bridging the hips up a little bit to bring your ball in underneath your tailbone. Check the ball is always underneath your tailbone and not underneath your lower back. We go back to finding that neutral pelvic position. Let your pelvis feel really heavy onto the ball here. Hands will still be on the hips, but we'll now lift our elbows up. Keep your shoulder blades nice and heavy, collarbones nice and wide. Exactly the same movement again, so we'll start by getting that core connection, so nice breath in, drop the ribs down, draw the belly button into the spine and lift the pelvic floor. Now slowly floating one knee out to the side, keeping our pelvis nice and still on the ball. This is where it becomes more challenging because you're not on a stable surface, so you will feel like one hip will want to dip and the opposite will want to lift. So you'll feel your obliques having to connect just that little bit more now here with your bent knee fallouts. So nice and slow in your own time. And then your next challenge up from here, if you want to increase the challenge a little bit more, is to float the legs up one by one into your double tabletop. Again, thinking of your alignment, ankles, knees and hips in alignment. So I shouldn't be able to see my feet here, they should be behind my knees. Elbows are still up, shoulders are heavy, we've got our core connection still, and now when you're ready, you're going to allow one leg to go out to the side. So the ankle and the knee go out, so again you shouldn't see your foot, it should be behind the knee. And then you pull it back into centre, and then we change to the opposite side. Now of course I've got very little stability here, as my elbows are up and my pelvis is on the ball. So it's not a very big movement, and again now this is where you want to check the stationary knee. So as that knee falls out to the side, the stationary knee stays really still over the top of the hip and it doesn't start to go outwards to counterbalance the weight. And that's your next challenge with your bent knee fallouts.